President Donald Trump has released new video footage of the breaking news coming out today of the woman in Minneapolis who was shot and killed by ICE agents after an alleged car ramming attack. Department of Homeland Security says. I'm going to be playing for you the video footage and take a look. Familiar groups mobilize immediately after the ICE shooting of Minnesota protester. We are hearing that there are protests. There's a lot taking place in Minneapolis. Minnesota governor says that he is preparing National Guard amid fervor over fatal ICE shooting. And Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem visits Minnesota as hundreds more ICE agents arrive. And the woman fatally shot by ICE officers in Minneapolis has been identified. Governor Walz demands investigations. An ICE officer fatally shot a woman Wednesday morning in South Minneapolis, according to the Department of Homeland Security. The shooting happened on East 34th Street and Portland Avenue, where federal and local law enforcement have clashed for hours with protesters. The victim has been identified by U.S. officials as 37-year-old Renee Good, according to two federal sources. She was a U.S. citizen. City leaders said that she was a legal observer of federal actions in the city and wasn't a target for an ICE-related arrest. However, I'm going to play for you the video footage. The new video footage is being released that she was blocking the path of ICE agents, and then they're saying she attempted to run them over, to ram them with her car, and the ICE agents defended themselves. So I'm going to play the video footage for you so you can see it for yourself, and you can let me know your thoughts in the comments. But we're going to dive right in. All these articles for the breaking news are going to be hyperlinked in the description. I'm going to put them on the screen, read right from them, play the video footage so you can see it for yourself. Now, if you appreciate that, before we dive in, do me a quick favor, take a quick second, hit that thumbs up like button for me, subscribe to stay up to date. In addition to the articles, there's also going to be additional resources linked for you down below. And I see some people in the comments saying that they agree with what happened, the ICE agents protecting themselves. Others saying, no, this was wrong. Let me know your thoughts. I see we got about 1,000 people. If you could hit that like button and help spread the stream out further so more people can get the breaking news. We get half the room to hit the like button. Helps out a ton. But with that being said, let's just go ahead and get right to it. We've got a bunch of video footage, tons of different angles to show you. Let's go ahead and take a look.
A woman in Minneapolis is dead after an ICE-involved shooting. These are live pictures from Minneapolis. There are videos, as we speak, going around social media showing what happened earlier today between protesters and ICE. We're working on bringing you those videos. You can see one of them on your screen as we speak. Basically, here's what it describes. It shows agents in a truck pulling up to a car that appears to be blocking the road. The two agents get out. They walk up to the driver's side of the car. From there, things escalate quickly. One agent touches the car and the driver starts driving backwards with the agent's hand still on the car. The driver then hits the gas while another agent appears to be standing in front of the vehicle. That agent, more in front of the car, appears to open fire as the car barrels towards him. DHS telling Fox News the officer who fired the shots had been dragged by a car last June in Minneapolis. We've since learned the driver of the car who was shot was a 37-year-old woman. She was killed. President Trump has weighed in just the last 30 minutes. He wrote, "I have just viewed the clip of the event which took place in Minneapolis. It is a horrible thing to watch. The woman screaming was obviously a professional agitator, and the woman driving the car was very disorderly, obstructing and resisting, who then violently, willfully, and viciously ran over the ICE officer who seems to have shot her in self-defense. It is hard to believe he is alive, but is now recovering in the hospital. The situation is being studied in its entirety. But the reason these incidents are happening is because the radical left is threatening, assaulting, and targeting our law enforcement officers and ICE agents on a daily basis. They are just trying to do the job of making America safe. We need to stand by and protect our law enforcement officers from this radical left movement of violence and hate." Now, not long after the incident, just a few hours ago, we saw chaos already beginning between law enforcement and rioters on the streets of Minneapolis. Watch.
Get back! Right in the face! Get back! All that video! Kill someone else! Don't get killed for this. It's not worth it, man. Go another way! Move! Go another way! Move! Go another way! Behind us! Move!
Get out of the way! Get out! Chris, get out the way! Get out the way of the truck! Move! Move! Nazis! 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 Nazis!
Tense in a city that not even 6 years ago was destroyed by political tension, by lawlessness, by agitators. And on that note, not long after that moment you saw on your screen, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey held a news conference where he basically begged for this to be 2026 George Floyd.
I have a message for ICE. To ICE, get the out of Minneapolis. We do not want you here. Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite.
Trust me, I have a lot to say about Mayor Jacob Frey and how he's handling what's happening in Minneapolis. We're going to get to that in just a moment. But just in the last few minutes, Democrat Minnesota Governor Tim Walz also found a podium.
I have a very simple message. We do not need any further help from the federal government. To Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, you've done enough. There's nothing more important than Minnesotan safety. I've issued a warning order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard. We have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary. I remind you, a warning order is a heads up for folks. And these National Guard troops are our National Guard troops.
Weird line. Our National Guard troops in Minnesota, seemingly pitting them against the United States of America. First, though, I want to go to Fox News correspondent Mike Tobin, who's on the scene in Minneapolis. He's been there all afternoon, where there are a lot of protesters and law enforcement officials on the scene. What's happening right now, Mike?
Well, this is a crowd that is left over at the scene where the woman was shot there. We saw the crowd dissipate largely when law enforcement stood down. They took the friction point away, if you will, and a large crowd of protesters followed them marching north on the street here. There were some objects thrown at that time, but the situation is pretty calm right now. I'd say there are about 150 people hanging around the scene where that woman was shot. Now, incidentally, Secretary Kristi Noem has weighed in on this. She called the use of the vehicle domestic terrorism.
It was an act of domestic terrorism. An officer of ours acted quickly and defensively shot to protect himself and the people around him. And my understanding is that she was hit and is deceased. We're continuing to gather more information, but this goes to show the assaults that our ICE officers and our law enforcement are under every single day.
Now, the narrative that the officer fired in self-defense or the defense of his fellow officers, Mayor Jacob Frey called that BS. He didn't use the acronym. And the Governor Walz weighed in on it. He said, don't believe the propaganda. Now, we do know from a DHS source who was speaking to John Roberts that the agent who fired the shot was involved in a vehicular dragging incident last June, was dragged by a vehicle, that particular officer. Also, since January of 2025, 2005, there have been 100 vehicular attacks while the agents are responding to different scenes and conducting their operations. Having done ride-alongs with the agents, I can tell you that the vehicular aggression is pretty frequent, and the feeling of the agents is it was just a matter of time before someone got hurt. Will?
Well, thank you so much, Mike Tobin. Now, in addition to revisiting the rhetoric of Jacob Frey, Tim Walz, and other Democratic politicians when it comes to ICE, we will be talking about the legality of this incident, the shooting in Minneapolis. But we have new video that we want to show you from the moment of the attack. This is a more wide view. We're working on a spot shadow for this video to show you exactly where to train your eyes so you can see more clearly. But it appears from this angle that you can see the agent was in front of the vehicle. There are a lot of angles out there, many of them circulating social media. We're trying to get clearance to bring many of those to air. But there are angles that show exactly the dynamics, the split-second calculations of an ICE agent on scene when a car accelerates into them.
Hey, Sean Hannity here.
There you have it, you guys. There's the video footage. We've got new angles, and I'm going to play for you some more footage so that way you can see everything that's coming out on this. But from what you've seen so far, who do you think was in the right? ICE? Or do you think it was Renee? Put it in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. If you think that Renee was in the right, put Renee. If you think that ICE was in the right, that they were okay, that that officer defended himself in shooting her, put ICE. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, as we're hearing that this individual was a part of the protests, was blocking ICE. They went and approached her. She didn't get out of her car, started moving forward. They said that she was attempting to ram the ICE agent. The ICE agent actually, they said, had been in a vehicular issue where he was hit. I can't remember how long they said, like a couple months earlier, and he immediately pulled out his gun and shot. And they said in self-defense, shot the woman, she was killed, and now we're seeing protests erupting and responses. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. I am seeing ICE pouring into the comments, people saying that ICE was in the right. I am seeing a couple people saying Renee, and we are seeing all over Minneapolis the response coming out. Now, in addition to that, we also heard that I think it was only about 3 blocks from the location of this shooting where they said George Floyd died. Was that just like 5 years ago? So they're saying that that is still fresh in the memory of the people. So there's a lot of protests now that are taking place responding to that. That was mentioned in that as well. Let's go ahead and take a look, though. More video footage coming out, a lot on this, and we're hearing the identity of this individual is Miss Renee Good. Let's go ahead and take a look.
What they are doing is causing chaos and distrust. They're ripping families apart. They're sowing chaos on our streets, and in this case, quite literally killing people. So they are already trying to spin this as an action of self-defense. Having seen the video of myself, I want to tell everybody directly, that is and I have a message for ICE. To ICE, get out of Minneapolis. We do not want you here.
So let's go right to Mike Tobin. He is standing by there in Minneapolis. Mike, what's the latest?
And Dana, DHS says that vehicle involved in this shooting was weaponized and directed at the agents. They say the agent who fired the shots was in fear of his life and the lives of his fellow agents. There are a number of videos circulating on social media right now. The ones in which you can see the agent who fired the shots, you will see 3 agents get out onto Portland Avenue and approach that vehicle. One of the agents was standing directly in front of that Honda SUV when it lunged forward. He fired 2 shots through the windshield. One of them, at least, struck this woman and killed her. Now, Jacob Frey, you heard him say that he doesn't buy the narrative at all, using the phrase BS there. Governor Tim Walz, with all the heat that he has been under lately, he said what he wants now is to get federal agents out of Minnesota.
We do not need any further help from the federal government. To Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, you've done enough. Minnesota will not allow our community to be used as a prop in a national political fight. We will not take the bait.
At Drive Time, we make it easy to get the car you want.
I need a pretty low monthly payment.
Well, just go to drivetime.com.
Chaos ensued immediately after the shooting. People descended on the scenes. They tried to push through the outer perimeter of the federal agents who were trying to keep the crime scene secure. That is when we saw the pepper spray come out. Tear gas came out a couple of times during the day today. The crowd remained on that scene, growing to about 400 strong at one point. But ultimately, they towed away that Honda SUV and a couple of vehicles that were hit by the car after the shooting, and that cleared the scene, and all law enforcement, federal agents had pulled out first, and local law enforcement maintained the scene, but there was still friction with the local law enforcement, meaning Minneapolis state and sheriff's deputies. They pulled all of them out, and that turned the protests at the shooting scene into a march. The march ultimately dissipated. You now have about 150 people still at that scene in South Minneapolis, and the crowd is quite emotional. Dana?
Mike, thank you so much. And I just want everybody to have a chance to hear from the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. She reacted earlier.
You asked about a shooting that we just had in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It was an act of domestic terrorism. What happened was our ICE officers were out in an enforcement action. They got stuck in the snow because of the adverse weather that is in Minneapolis. They were attempting to push out their vehicle, and a woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over and ram them with her vehicle. An officer of ours acted quickly and defensively shot to protect himself and the people around him.
All right, we'll get this news analyzed by the folks here at the table. Lawrence, vehicles can be used as a weapon. Is that what you think happened here?
Well, they are considered weapons. I want to handle this a little bit differently. I don't want to tell the audience what to think, but I do want to offer them some perspective as they analyze the video. A couple of things that I looked at immediately is how the responding officers respond immediately. There's a vehicle that is clearly obstructing them. The threat level is high, but the responding officers go toward the vehicle and they don't go with their weapons drawn. Typically, in a case like that, their weapons would be drawn because you have obstruction that's going on. You don't know who's in the vehicle. You don't know what's in the vehicle, but they don't. The responding officer on the right-hand side, and you'll see it in the video, that ends up being the person that shoot the suspect there at the time, has his phone video in it. You see a cell phone the entire time. He then makes his way, which is standard operating procedure. When you don't see someone that's in the passenger side, you want to get a clear view of the windshield so you can see who's in the vehicle, right? So he's positioned there. There's another officer that's on that side where the suspect is that's driving the car. He still has his cell phone filming the entire thing. Now then, as they're given the command to stop the car, one of the officers puts his arm into the vehicle, because that's a dangerous. His gun is still not drawn. His arm is in the car trying to open the door. All right. The officer at some point, when you see the other angle, and we're showing it right here, that's in the front, that has his cell phone, when the vehicle starts to go forward, puts his phone down, draws his guns, and fires a shot in the front of the windshield, striking the suspect. Those angles are important. I'll add one more piece to this, because a vehicle can be a weapon. I'm learning from my sources within the department, both in the White House as well in ICE. The officer that shot the shot has been drugged before. Now, John Roberts has this reporting, as well as my sources have confirmed it. Now, there could be body cam that says this is not true. They could say that these sources are wrong. But right now, based on the evidence that we have right now that is available to everyone, it looks like a clean shoot.
Mm-hmm. Emily, I want to just play for you from Governor Walz. He's been in the news a lot lately, and for other reasons, which we might get to a little bit later, on the fraud there in Minneapolis and the welfare fraud. But he also came out in front of the cameras today, talked about the shooting.
We have been warning for weeks that the Trump administration's dangerous, sensationalized operations are a threat to our public safety, that someone was going to get hurt. Just yesterday, I said exactly that. What we're seeing is the consequences of governance designed to generate fear, headlines, and conflict. It's governing by reality TV. And today that recklessness cost someone their life.
Any thoughts here on the legalities or on those comments?
Right. Well, first of all, him mentioning reality TV and recklessness, those are his comments. And he's the one that is theatrical and dynamic on stages, calling President Trump ICE agents, Gestapo, and Nazis. So we can get to that a little bit later as well, because I do want to focus on the legalities for a second. So for those that on the left that have been jumping to conclusions that this is murder and it wasn't self-defense, including the mayor, which is so, speaking of reckless, absolutely worthless and such a rotten form of leadership to come out of the gate and say it was not self-defense. But here's the standard that officers abide by. First of all, if the officer reasonably believes that the suspect poses an imminent threat, not just of actual deadly injury, but of serious imminent injury, then that can be justified in shooting. And the factors, including just last year by the Supreme Court, involve the totality of circumstances. So let's look at the totality of circumstances here. First of all, they clearly said on multiple angles of those videos, you can hear them saying, get out of the car. When a suspect is requested to get out of the car, that means that it is a temporary investigative detention. That is a Fourth Amendment seizure. That subject was not allowed to leave, not free to leave. And yet we saw that individual behind the wheel of the car use a motor vehicle to ram out of the way, to surge and gas out of the way. Well, you talked about it being used as a weapon. Motor vehicles accounted for 1/3 of officer deaths in the last decade. Wow. And it spiked even more than that in the last year. So absolutely right that it poses an extreme risk to their safety. And when we talk about the rhetoric, as the no self-defense and that ICE agents are Gestapo and the like, that too feeds into the totality of the circumstances. When this officer reasonably believes that they are in fear of imminent injury, serious injury or death. And furthermore, that standard also accounts for potential injury or of risk of injury to bystanders. So while fleeing isn't enough, fleeing in a deadly weapon with bystanders and other officers everywhere, including that one that I saw on the thing sort of limping, because I think that did pull the trigger, that clearly made contact with that vehicle. Well, then that shows you all you need to know.
Click. There you have it. Now, let me know your thoughts after seeing this, these video clips, getting more information on this. Do you still think that ICE was in the right? If so, put ICE. If you think Renee was in the right, put Renee. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I saw there was a couple of people saying that they felt like she should not have been shot. But a lot of people say, no, this was self-defense and that she should not have been trying to put her car into drive and be driving while the officers are approaching the vehicle. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you haven't done so yet, please take a second, hit the like button. Helps spread this out while we're live on YouTube. But let's take a look at some more of the news coming out here. There is a lot of clips coming out. I saw people asking for different angles. I've got several different clips that have come out in the past hour or so that you're going to be seeing lots of different angles here. There are some from up close, some from the sides. There's actually one that's up from a building nearby that's recording. So let's go ahead and take a look.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. A federal immigration officer has shot and killed a woman in Minneapolis. According to 2 federal sources, the victim has been identified as 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good, a U.S. citizen. And we want to warn you, this next video may be disturbing to some viewers. Descriptions of exactly what happened vary. You can see one of the vantage points on your screen here. Witnesses tell CBS Minnesota that federal agents were blocking that Honda Pilot, sort of a maroon color. The Minneapolis police chief says she was blocking the roadway. One agent tried opening the driver's side door, which was locked. You're going to see that moment right here. The driver then puts the car in reverse, then forward, and that's when shots were fired. At least 3 shots audibly in the video, killing the driver. That car then moves forward and hits some other cars on the side of the road. A Homeland Security Department spokesperson says the woman was deliberately trying to ram into the officers. Secretary Kristi Noem characterized her actions as an act of domestic terrorism. The shooting comes as the Trump administration launches its largest deployment yet of federal agents to the Twin Cities. Around 2,000 agents were sent there as part of an immigration crackdown and investigation into alleged fraud. Earlier during an event in Texas, Secretary Noem spoke about the shooting.
This is the quickest way to go from AI beginner to AI fluent in 2026.
An officer of ours acted quickly and defensively shot to protect himself and the people around him. And my understanding is that she was hit and is deceased.
Local officials are disputing those claims. Secretary Noem is expected to speak shortly from Minneapolis about the incident. We will monitor that and bring you updates when it happens. Minnesota's Democratic Governor Tim Walz offered condolences to the victim's family and says he doesn't want or need the federal government's presence in his state.
We have been warning for weeks that the Trump administration's dangerous, sensationalized operations are a threat to our public safety, that someone was going to get hurt. What we're seeing is the consequences of governance designed to generate fear.
CBS News Homeland Security correspondent Nicole Skanga begins our coverage from Minneapolis.
ICE agents were in the neighborhood for an enforcement operation, and residents were honking horns and blowing whistles.
There's a red SUV parked right in front of our house.
Aiden and Grace Perzana say they saw the entire scene from their home and that several officers surrounded the SUV.
A third person in also camouflage fatigues came and started pulling on the driver's side door handle, at which point the vehicle backed up a few feet and started driving forward. The agent who was on the driver's side originally, who was not pulling on the handle but had been there prior to that, shot 2 or 3 times through the driver's side window. The car drove a 30-40 feet and crashed into another car in the telephone pole.
It was an act of domestic terrorism.
Speaking in Texas, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said agents were acting in self-defense after their vehicle was stuck in the snow.
They were attempting to push out their vehicle, and a woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over and ram them with her vehicle.
The shooting quickly sparked protests and outrage. Just this week, the Trump administration launched its biggest crackdown on illegal immigration, sending about 2,000 agents into the Twin Cities. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey.
What they are doing is not to provide safety in America. What they are doing is causing chaos and distrust.
He demanded ICE leave the city and urged residents to remain calm. Nicole Skanga, CBS News, Minneapolis.
CBS News legal reporter Katrina Kaufman joins us now. Obviously, Katrina, social media blew up after this, and there are really heightened emotions on either side. We need to wait for a lot of the facts here, but we did learn the identity of the woman who was shot. And what else are you learning?
That's correct. So we've learned her name, that she's a U.S. citizen, as you mentioned. The Minnesota Star Tribune had the opportunity to speak with her mother, who said that she lived in the Twin Cities with her partner. Another relative said she has a 4 or 5-year-old child. But something that her mother said is that she would not have been part of challenging the ICE presence in Minneapolis. When she heard about the circumstances of how she died, she said that that was stupid, quote, and she described her as a kind and compassionate person who was always taking care of others. She said she was just an amazing human being.
Do we know any more context about what she said was stupid, about what was being said about the circumstances?
There wasn't more context to it, but it sounded like she thought the circumstances of these events.
Okay, wasn't necessarily believing what she was hearing from federal officials, potentially given what she knows about her daughter. How are investigators going to approach this case?
So they will want to reconstruct the scene, Lindsay, to speak with everyone who was on the ground there. We're already seeing videos emerging, different perspectives of what happened. So ultimately, they want to figure out what exactly transpired here, what led up to this interaction, how did it unfold. The real threshold question, Lindsay, is there are circumstances under which ICE officers are authorized to use deadly force. Was there an imminent threat of death or serious physical harm to the ICE officers, to someone else? So that is the real threshold question here. Was that shooting necessary to prevent death or serious bodily harm? As you said, there's these two very different narratives. Was she trying to run over the ICE officer? Or as others say, was she just trying to drive away?
Okay, Katrina Kaufman, thank you.
Thank you.
CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe joins us. Ed, what more is the White House saying?
No specific reaction just yet to the governor and the mayor of Minneapolis's calls for the federal government to leave the city and the state. But the president himself, like many who've been near screens today, weighing in on what he saw in one of the angles of the video, saying in part that to his eye, quote, the woman driving the car was very disorderly, obstructing and resisting, who then violently, willfully, and viciously ran over the ICE officer who seems to have shot her in self-defense. He added later that this is happening because the radical left is threatening, assaulting, and targeting our law enforcement officers and ICE agents on a daily basis. So nothing else so far, at least from the president, but the fact that the Homeland Security Secretary has rushed from Texas to Minnesota as quickly as she did after being there on Monday, in part to speak with our own Nicole Skanga, is a sign that at least her department is taking this pretty seriously and that she felt compelled to be there to reiterate what the administration has always said, that the ICE agents deserve to be able to carry out their work and that the general public should respect their work and follow the instructions of law enforcement if and when they're given.
I want to play some of what Governor Walz said earlier today.
I've reached out to Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, and I'm waiting to hear back. Let me be clear. Donald Trump and his administration may not care much about Minnesota. That's been pretty evident, but we love this state.
Now, that was 2.5 hours ago, mind you, so we don't know if he did get a call back, but typically what kind of communication would a governor and the administration typically have following an event like this?
Whenever there are instances of violence or a natural disaster or something that has a federal component to it, in this case, it was a federal officer killing someone and then causing a disturbance, someone at a White House, in the White House, would conceivably call to check in with the mayor or the governor or both and just sort of say, what do you need, or what do you think, what can we do to make sure this situation remains peaceful? We have no indication that that's happened at this point between the governor or the mayor and the White House or the Department of Homeland Security. Noem has been criticized by members of both parties, in Congress at least, for failing to follow up on congressional inquiries regarding ongoing immigration operations and immigration enforcement actions and other aspects of her department's sprawling work. Remember, there was that incident when federal agents were deployed in Los Angeles, where the California Senator Alex Padilla showed up because he happened to be in the same building meeting with other officials regarding that deployment. And after days of trying to get in touch with the secretary, realized she was just down the hall. He went to see her, and then he got beat up for interrupting her during a news conference. So, the track record of outreach, proactive outreach after something happens, is not good.
Now, we've heard that they are reaching out, you can see on the screen, to the Department of Homeland Security. We also have heard that they're calling for the National Guard. Take a look at this with me. Minnesota governor says that he is preparing National Guard amid furor over the fatal ICE shooting. The woman was identified as 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good. And we actually have more video footage we're going to be taking a look at here. I see people asking for other angles. There are several angles we're going to be looking at in just a second. But let's take a look at this. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz said that he has issued an order to prepare the state's National Guard while urging peaceful protest after an immigration and customs enforcement agent fatally shot a woman in her car during operations in Minneapolis on Wednesday. Walz and the Minneapolis mayor are disputing the government's claims surrounding what led up to the shooting, which killed a 37-year-old woman who has been identified by city council members as Renee Nicole Good, a resident of the city. We have someone dead in their car for no reason whatsoever, Walz said during a news conference, decrying the shooting as preventable and unnecessary. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you agree? Yes or no? Was this preventable? Was this, what was his exact words? For no reason? Yes or no in the comments. According to the Department of Homeland Security spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin, the woman was allegedly attempting to run over our law enforcement officers when an ICE officer fatally shot her on Wednesday morning. Now, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem claimed that the incident was an act of domestic terrorism and argued that the vehicle was a deadly weapon. Deadly force is perfectly lawful when a threat is faced by a weapon, and they are saying that she was using the vehicle to potentially run him over, therefore the vehicle being a weapon, she said during a press briefing on Wednesday. Following the shooting, a large crowd gathered in the area, which is less than a mile from where George Floyd was killed in May of 2020. The governor said that he has issued a warning order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard, saying there are soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary while urging peaceful resistance. And here you can see some of the photos. We'd seen some of the video footage. I want Minnesotans to hear this from me. The desire to get out in the protest and to speak up to the administration of how wrong this is, that is a patriotic duty at this point in time. But it needs to be done safely, he said. I feel your anger. I am angry. They want a show. We can give it to them, Walz said. A Minnesota National Guard spokesperson said following the briefing that it is conducting necessary preparations to assist state authorities in protecting property and ensuring public safety if so ordered. That there has not been an official request for support yet, Based on video and photos from the scene in Minneapolis following the shooting, law enforcement deployed crowd control measures, including tear gas and pepper spray on some protesters. As large law enforcement presence gathered, some protesters could be seen throwing snowballs at officers. One held a sign that said "shame." President Donald Trump said the officer acted in self-defense. The woman driving the car was very disorderly, obstructing and resisting, who then violently, willfully, and viciously ran over the ICE officer who seemed to have shot her in self-defense, Trump posted on social media. DHS also said the officer fired defensive shots, and they were saying 3 shots were fired. The Minneapolis mayor, however, at an impassionate news conference, said that he saw the video of the incident and claimed that the agent's actions were not self-defense. This was an agent recklessly using power that resulted in somebody dying, getting killed, Mayor Jacob Frey said. Frey said it does not appear that the victim was driving her car toward the agent and using her car as a weapon. She was a U.S. citizen who was an observer and was watching out for our immigration neighbors, according to Minneapolis City Council member Jason Chavez. Frey said his message to ICE is to get the F out of Minneapolis. We've dreaded this moment since the early stages of this ICE presence in Minneapolis, Frey said. And here you can see protesters, looks like throwing snowballs. Minneapolis police said preliminary information indicates that she was in her car and blocking the road. At some point, a federal law enforcement officer approached her on foot, and the vehicle began to drive off, police said. At least 2 shots were fired. The vehicle then crashed on the side of the road. There is nothing to indicate that this woman was the target of any law enforcement investigation or activity, police have said. The woman had gunshot wounds to the head and was transported to an area hospital where she died, according to the city officers. In describing the shooting, McLaughlin said that an ICE officer, fearing for his life, the lives of his fellow law enforcement, and the safety of the public, fired defensive shots. He used his training and saved his own life and that of his fellow officers, she said, referring to the woman as a part of the group of rioters. Noem alleged that the woman did not comply with ICE agents' orders to get out of her car before she proceeded to weaponize her own vehicle. We had law enforcement officers that were out there doing an enforcement action, and a vehicle got stuck in the snow. And so they had called for other people to come and help them get that vehicle out, she said at a press briefing on Wednesday. Those officers were trying to free the vehicle when the harassment started, when the protesters were out there impeding their vehicles and preventing them from leaving the scene. Asked to respond to Frey's remarks questioning that this was self-defense, Noem said he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's very clear that this individual was harassing and impeding law enforcement operations, she said. Our officer followed his training, did exactly what he's been taught to do in this situation, and took action to defend himself and defend his fellow law enforcement officers. Noem said that the officer was struck by the vehicle and has since been treated and released from the hospital. She said she has spoken to Waltz about the shooting. And here are some more images of the protests that are currently going on right now. Now, in addition to that, let's go ahead and take a look at some more video footage that's been coming out. I know people are asking for all of the angles, and there are several different ones. Here's one that is from up above. Let's go ahead and take a look at this so you can see it for yourself.
Okay, they're approaching.
Yeah,
okay.
This is ICE agents just pulling up here. The vehicle is
Lower
right there.
And it happens so fast that it's hard to see what takes place in this particular video, but that is the front angle, and then we have also obtained some video from behind where it happens, but that is the vehicle that belongs to the woman who was killed today. And as Randy said, there were 3 agents in particular surrounding the car. It's unclear why she was parked at an angle in the street or what was happening in the street at that time. We do know that as they approached her vehicle, one agent told her to get out of the car, and then we see the car start to move, and then we hear the shots.
So that video you just saw is the one that President Trump also viewed this afternoon as well. And post watching that video, the president did put out a statement. I believe we have that for you. And it reads like this: I have just viewed the clip of the event which took place in Minneapolis. Minnesota. It is a horrible thing to watch. The woman screaming was obviously a professional agitator, and the woman driving the car was very disorderly, obstructing and resisting, who then violently, willfully, and viciously ran over the ICE officer who seems to have shot her in self-defense. We will say from our observations, the officer does not appear to have been on the pavement. He was in front of that bumper at the time, but we never saw from any of our angles him hit the pavement. He goes on to say, is there more of the president's statement, or is this the full context? He goes on to say they are just trying to do a job of making America safe. We need to stand by and protect our law enforcement officers from this, and these are his words, radical left movement of violence and hate. Again, that was President Trump's evaluation as he watched the video earlier.
And then we have the clip of the perspective from behind the vehicle as well that we want to show you. So you've seen the perspective from the front, and now we're going to show you the perspective from behind, from somebody who had a cell phone out at the scene when all of this. Quickly, we're going to try to get to a point where we can maybe slow this down and show you some still shots. But as Randy was saying, we see all of the agents standing in the street, nobody on the ground. Again, that is the perspective from behind, and we've watched it several times. So again, that vehicle the woman was in is it's parked in the street. We don't know for how long though, and it was at an angle, and we know that ICE agents then approached that vehicle, and then the vehicle started to take off. Then after you hear the shots, it veers off into that parked car on the side of the street. Kristi Noem also issued a statement today, and I don't know if we can put it up on the screen, but just want to give you the perspective of all the different reactions that are coming in as a result of this shooting this morning. Noem saying it was an act of domestic terrorism. What happened was our ICE officers were out in enforcement action. They got stuck in the snow because of the adverse weather that is in Minneapolis. They were attempting to push out their vehicle, and a woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over and ram them with her vehicle. An officer of ours acted quickly and defensively, shot to protect himself and the people around him. My understanding is she was hit and is deceased, and we've confirmed that. This goes to show the assaults that our ICE officers and law enforcement are under every single day. Again, that is Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, and again, they have deployed about 2,000 ICE agents to the Minneapolis area in the last couple of days and have already made hundreds of arrests. And we know that they continued with ICE operations later today at different locations in spite of this shooting.
There you have it, you guys. So that was another angle that we have seen, as there is lots of footage coming out on this right now. Because right now they're trying to decide like what actually happened here. Donald Trump has come out and said this was self-defense, but there are those saying that they think that it was overreaction on a part of the officer. So, you know, we're trying to see all the angles here so that way you're able to get the latest on this. And we're hearing that it was a 37-year-old woman by the name of Renee Good. And as you can see, they're saying that she was obstructing officers, impeding their passage, blocking them. They went to approach the vehicle. When they did, she started trying to drive, and they said that she was trying to drive to hit the officers. Some were saying that she was trying to drive away. Some make the argument that if officers are approaching your vehicle, you shouldn't be driving off at all. Whatever the case, that officer felt like he was being attacked. The car actually bumped him, they're saying, and you can kind of see it from some angles. Pulled out his gun, and they're saying he had fired 3 times. One news report said 2 times, and they're saying that she was shot and she was taken to the hospital where she later died. But let's take a look at some more footage so you can see it for yourself.
We want to go back to our top story tonight, the fatal ICE-involved shooting in Minneapolis, and we want to warn you, some viewers may find video of the shooting disturbing. The victim has been identified as 37-year-old Renee Good, a U.S. citizen. That's according to 2 federal sources. Witnesses say a car was blocked by multiple federal agents. Kristi Noem, who we just heard, said she was blocking agents' cars. One agent then tried to open the driver's side door. The car went in reverse, then forward, and that's when witnesses say they heard shots fired and the car crashed into another vehicle several feet away. Former Minneapolis Police Chief Medaria Arradondo joins us now. Chief, thank you for being here. What are you making of the videos we're seeing and what we're hearing from officials?
Yeah, thank you for having me tonight. You know, the video obviously is going to be a key part of the evidence that both the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and the FBI will be examining that. There also is going to be just a lot of other videos, cell phone videos. From Secretary Noem's press conference just now, it's clear that her teams are receiving more information, it sounds like specifically from the officer, the ICE agent involved in the shooting. She let others know about his mindset, what he felt was his mindset at the time, the threat that he perceived at the time. But one of the things that stood out to me in this press conference, and I saw Governor Walz's press conference earlier, and certainly Mayor Jacob Fry's this morning, is the local officials and state officials had been saying that they had not been receiving cooperation or communication from federal officials on the ground. Secretary Noem has just stated that, and I wrote this down, that she wants to work with them to have a safer Minneapolis. So I think that's critical, because what the folks in Minneapolis are going to want to know is, are both sides talking to each other? And as this investigation continues to proceed, that's going to be critical that all of these agencies involved are transparent, are getting as much information out in terms of how the investigation is moving forward to the communities. And so that's what I'll be looking forward to seeing as the hours and days proceed here.
And you were chief of police when George Floyd was murdered in 2020. This is less than a mile from the incident we saw today, maybe a few blocks. Do you see any similarities to that case here in terms of public backlash?
Yeah, the actual incident where the shooting took place is literally about 3 blocks from where Mr. Floyd was killed. You know, one of the things that happens oftentimes is that the first public statement is usually not the most accurate. And so that was learned back May 25th, 2020. And, there was an immediate statement that came out. Then the video was released. And so right now you have people that are questioning, which narrative is actually accurate. And so obviously being in close proximity to where the events of May 25th, 2020 occurred, that rings out true. And then again, we just monitoring City of Minneapolis and its community. They're certainly trying to heal after the past 5.5 years. And so it's a very fragile time right now. And that's why it's so very important that I think all leaders involved in this really sort of lower the temperature. Facts are going to be important. Being transparent, getting as much information out into the community is going to be very important. And building those relationships even during the quiet times.
A Minneapolis City Council member shared this video showing Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino at the scene. Some people there expressing their frustration over the shooting. That City Council member, Democrat Jason Chavez of Ward 9, joins me now. Council member, thank you for your time. But first, I want to ask you, did you personally know the woman that was killed today?
I don't, but this individual is loved by our neighbors and is someone who did nothing wrong.
Yeah. Well, and I want to follow up because in a Facebook post, you said the agent who murdered our neighbor must be arrested. Those who are involved in murder must be arrested. Will the city of Minneapolis open a criminal complaint and file charges with Hennepin County?
My hope is that the city of Minneapolis does the best to its ability to hold anybody, including these ICE agents, accountable for murdering our neighbor. I believe that the Minneapolis Police Department must be assisting in ensuring that evidence is submitted to make sure that this ICE agent is arrested as soon as possible.
Yeah, and Councilmember, DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said that this woman weaponized her vehicle in an act of domestic terrorism. What's your response to that?
Well, people can watch the videos for themselves, and they will tell that the individual that was murdered by ICE did not do anything to warrant their murder. What we know in Minneapolis is that we have a variety of community responders on the ground watching ICE agents, helping families with rent, food, watching our neighborhoods, making sure that we can keep our neighborhoods safe and make sure that immigration enforcement isn't splitting our families apart. And what we do know is that the federal administration, Kristi Noem, and those who want to split families apart want to set up this pretend narrative that it is on our community members' faults that bad things are happening when we know that is not the case. They want to say that this is domestic terrorism, but the actual domestic terrorism is splitting families apart. It is terrorizing our neighbors. It is picking up people from bus stops and stripping due process away from our neighborhood.
We learned this afternoon that the FBI is now going to be investigating this incident. Do you welcome that federal investigation?
We should make sure that folks here in the state actually do that investigation to make sure that we can actually hold this ICE agent accountable.
Finally here, this is a city that has dealt with the issues of, police-involved killings playing out on video in the past. Certainly, it's a city that's likely on edge right now. Are you concerned about what happened today, potentially sparking further unrest?
I kind of want to talk a little bit about the area that we're in. This was 34th and Portland, blocks from where the Minneapolis Police Department murdered George Floyd on broad daylight. So this neighborhood, this area in South Minneapolis has been experiencing tense relationship with law enforcement, whether it's with immigration or our Minneapolis Police Department. What we do know is that community members are out on the street demanding justice, which is something that we all need to be demanding, making sure that this ICE official is detained and arrested and fired immediately. But we also know that folks are out in the community right now, patrolling our neighborhoods, making sure people can get home safely, making sure people can get the groceries that they need, making sure that they can alert and blow a whistle whenever ICE is near so their neighbors know what is happening. So I'm not concerned about any escalating tension except for the fact that ICE is already here and that is the tension, and they are creating that tension to our neighbors.
Let me know if you agree with that city council member for Minneapolis who said that the woman did nothing wrong and that she shouldn't have been murdered. And he said that the true crime is ICE breaking up families in Minneapolis. Do you agree? If so, put agree in the comments. If you disagree, put disagree. Let me know your thoughts. But that was one of the city council members for Minneapolis talking on what has unfolded today, January the 7th, 2026. Now, we also saw Kristi Noem come out, and she had a news conference where she discussed everything that's unfolding here. And like we heard, there's going to be more investigations into this to find out exactly the details of what unfolded. You've seen the video footage from several different angles now. It does appear that the woman is blocking the path of the ICE agents, just sitting in the road. One of the reports said that she was a part of the group that was there that was trying to impede their passage. I guess there was a bunch of them that knew that ICE was there, was trying to stop them from going by. They were trying to get a vehicle, they said, that was stuck out of the snow. They approached the vehicle. As they approached the vehicle, she appears to reverse. And by that time, there were several ICE agents around the vehicle, tries to go forward, actually hits one of the ICE agents. It looked like his right kneecap, if I'm not mistaken. That officer pulls out his gun, fires. We're hearing that there was 2 or 3 shots. One of them hits the individual, and she drives off about 30, 40 feet, we heard, hits another car and a tree, was taken to the hospital, and then later died. But let's take a look at the report that has come out from Kristi Noem on this as well, so you can get the information directly from her.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. I want to start out by addressing the loss of life that we saw here in Minneapolis today. Any loss of life is a tragedy, and I think all of us can agree that in this situation it was preventable. I've spoken to the president today on the situation here on the ground. I also just got off the phone a little while ago with Governor Walz and spoke to him as well. I want to reiterate first with all of you the facts of what happened today. At 10:25 a.m. Central Time, Immigration and Customs Enforcement were carrying out lawful operations here in Minneapolis. Because of the adverse weather that Minneapolis has seen in recent snow, one of the vehicles became stuck and ensnared in the snow. Law enforcement were attempting to push out this vehicle, and when a mob of agitators that were harassing them all day began blocking them in, shouting at them, and impeding law enforcement operations. ICE officers and agents approached the vehicle of the individual in question, who was blocking the officers in with her vehicle, and she had been stalking and impeding their work all throughout the day. ICE agents repeatedly ordered her to get out of the car.
You live in a world that's designed to hijack your dopamine. We're scrolling, setting it up.
And to stop obstructing law enforcement, but she refused to obey their commands. She then proceeded to weaponize her vehicle, and she attempted to run a law enforcement officer over. This appears as an attempt to kill or to cause bodily harm to agents, an act of domestic terrorism. The ICE officer, fearing for his life and the other officers around him and the safety of the public, fired defensive shots. He used his training to save his own life and that of his colleagues. He was treated at a local hospital, has been released, and is now with family. I encourage the American people at this point in time to pray for him, but also to pray for the deceased's family and her loved ones. Today alone in this country, there have been 4 different domestic terrorist attacks on federal officers by the ramming of vehicles. 3 of them happened here in Minneapolis. We've seen over 100 of these vehicle rammings happen in just recent weeks, and this must stop. ICE alone is facing a 1,300% increase in assaults against them and an 8,000% increase in death threats against all of them. In fact, the very same officer who was attacked today had previously been dragged by an anti-ICE rioter who had rammed him with a car and drug him back in June. He sustained injuries at that time as well. And let me remind you why we're all here in this city today and why we've been here. In communities across this country and here in Minneapolis, we're just enforcing the laws that we have in this country. For years under President Biden, tens of millions of dangerous criminal illegal aliens, terrorists, and suspected terrorists were allowed to invade our country over our southern border. They were allowed to steal, to defraud, and to perpetuate violence against American citizens. Regardless of who your mayor or who your governor is, President Trump promised every single American that he would make America safe again. He promised every single American that he would work to protect them from dangerous criminals. Since Governor Walz has been in charge of Minnesota, we have seen homicides go up by over 50%. That's also during Mayor Frye's tenure as well. Since President Trump took office, Governor Walz has released over 470 violent criminals back onto the streets here in Minneapolis. He has another 680 of them still within his jurisdiction that he could give to us today to face the consequences for their crimes. Because Governor Walz and Mayor Frye refuse to protect Minnesotans, and instead they protect these criminals, that's why we are here. And we didn't just show up yesterday, we've always been here. But we're surging operations because of the dangerous situation we see in this country and because we're no longer going to allow illegal criminals to damage and harm, to kill, to sexually abuse, to proliferate drugs, and to steal American taxpayers' dollars. This state has faced unprecedented immigration fraud. It's seen unprecedented benefit fraud. Individuals were allowed to come into this country and set up fake companies and fake nonprofits and divert billions of dollars away from American citizens and those vulnerable citizens who truly needed the services from those programs. This city has burned before, and your mayor and your governor let it happen. President Trump is not going to let that happen. He and our federal law enforcement officers are here to bring peace and to bring public safety and to ensure that criminal activity is stopped and that people who perpetuate it will face consequences. Since we have been here in recent weeks, we have arrested over 1,500 criminals off of the streets. Our law enforcement has arrested murderers, known and suspected terrorists, child pedophiles, and other brutal criminals that were protected here in this city. We should all work together to protect our citizens. We should all protect the men and the women and the families who live here in Minneapolis, who live in Minnesota, and live throughout this entire country. I want to thank you for being here, and I want to thank you for focusing on the important work that our federal officers do and make sure that we're focused on the priorities of this country, and that's making sure that we're keeping people safe. With that, I'll take any questions that you may have.
Secretary, no, Mayor Frye called the claims of self-defense BS. How do you respond to that?
I say that he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's very clear that this individual was harassing and impeding law enforcement operations. Our officer followed his training, did exactly what he's been taught to do in that situation, and took actions to defend himself and defend his fellow law enforcement officers.
Secretary, can you expand too on the agent's injuries? The president said that he's lucky to be alive.
The officer was hit by the vehicle. She hit him. He went to the hospital. A doctor did treat him. He has been released, but he's going to spend some time with his family.
Can you clarify whether he was hit before or after the windshield was fired?
I can't, but the FBI will continue the investigation and release more facts when it's appropriate.
I've had these implants for about 3 years now. I got these done in 20.
No, we're following the standard protocol procedures we do in situations like this. When there's an officer involved shooting, we make sure that we get the facts and that we are getting the statements from everybody involved and make sure that investigators are handling the decisions.
Is this agent on?
ICE operations paused because of what happened today?
No, we're still out on the streets doing our work to get dangerous criminals off of the streets of Minneapolis.
Can you tell us whether there's
Into your conversation with the governor?
You know, Tim and I have known each other for years. We served in Congress together. We both ran for governor the same year and have served as governor at the same times. So we were colleagues, and we discussed what happened here today. We have two very different viewpoints of it. I talked specifically about the fact that we have laws. They need to be enforced. He knows that I believe sanctuary policies have protected criminals and placed a priority of them over the citizens that live here, and he knows we'll continue to do our work, and I encouraged him to work with us. We've never had a cooperative arrangement with law enforcement here. Whenever we've done investigations, whenever we've done police work, when we've been doing what we can to bring people to justice for the crimes that they commit, we haven't had the cooperation of the state of Minnesota or the city police here under the mayor's direction. If you talk to any of these federal law enforcement officers, they'll say that when they call for backup in a situation, that it's hit and miss. They were grateful today that the police chief and local law enforcement showed up at the scene and helped secure it to make sure that nobody was harmed and that the FBI could do their work. But I would encourage them to work with us, that we could form a partnership that would make sure that individuals have the opportunity to have a safe Minneapolis.
Secretary Noem, the governor...
Over here.
Do you stand behind the use of force, and will any of those use of force guidelines be altered or changed in the future?
You know, it's clearly established law that a vehicle driven by a person and used to harm someone is a deadly weapon. Deadly force is perfectly lawful when a threat is faced by a weapon. So I do believe that this officer used his training in this situation, and we'll let the FBI continue the investigation to get it resolved.
So just to be clear, did the shooting happen before or after the vehicle hit the officer?
I know you keep asking that, but that doesn't mean that the FBI is going to give you an answer today.
Well,
there will be an
trying to figure out the
investigation. We want to make sure that it's factual. What I would ask is that as we go forward from here today, that we all remember that our job is to have peaceful discussions. I'd encourage our local law enforcement and state law enforcement to work with us. We are going to continue to operate here in Minneapolis and in the state of Minnesota to make sure we're going after dangerous criminals. One of the key focuses that we've had here is a focus on individuals who are sexual predators and are involved in child exploitation. When I was just here yesterday, we arrested individuals who were charged with criminal assault and sexual assault and people that exploited children. Why would you want to keep them on your streets? President Trump has promised to go after the worst of the worst, and that's exactly what we're doing in Minneapolis. By not working with us, Governor Walz and Mayor Frey are putting those criminals and prioritizing them over our children and our grandchildren.
Governor Walz said that he has not been given any heads up when there is going to be.
And that's simply not true. He said that to me on the phone too, so I'll get him the documentation that he needs so that he knows that we would love to coordinate with him. He doesn't give us access to any information on criminals, let us know who he's detained, doesn't honor our detainers, and has individuals and criminals in his jurisdiction that he won't turn over us today too.
Is there body camera
Yes.
footage available?
The officer involved today was once before raped by a vehicle. Can you explain the difference between that instance and today? Was a firearm discharged then? If not, what was the big difference?
I won't speak to that case right now, but we can get you the details and the information on that. But the facts of the matter is he's an experienced officer. He's been in situations like this before, and he certainly has been out there and followed his training today.
Given the threat of vehicle encounters, are you going to change the way ICE agents?
You know, people need to stop using their vehicles as weapons.
Are you going to change the
This
training for
domestic
officers
act
to
of
help
terrorism
them
to
face
use
this?
your vehicle to try to kill law enforcement officers is going to stop. And I'm asking the Department of Justice to prosecute it as domestic terrorism because it's clear that it's being coordinated. People are being trained and told how to use their vehicles to impede law enforcement operations and then to run over anybody who gets in their way while they go out there and try to disrupt peace and public safety. And Americans deserve better.
Are agents being trained differently?
That hasn't been a part of the discussion. I know Governor Walz mentioned some of that earlier in his press conference, but we've got law enforcement officers here that will continue to work, and we're hopeful that the public recognizes that the work that we do every day makes America safe again. With that, we had law enforcement officers that were out there doing an enforcement action, and a vehicle got stuck in the snow, and so they had called for other people to come and help them get that vehicle out. Those officers were trying to free the vehicle when the harassment started, when the protesters were out there impeding their vehicles and preventing them from leaving the scene. I won't speak to that.
Was it on a crime that person may be committed that you were going after?
Mm-mm.
You mentioned sexual criminal. Will body camera footage be released?
I will let the FBI decide.
Were they on target today when they were in that neighborhood?
They were returning back to headquarters, I believe, to start a new operation, had just completed one. Well, thank you. What's that? I was one of the vehicles that ICE officers were using. But remember, when we operate in a task force model. So we have other federal agencies that work with us, and we're very grateful for that. We have CBP officers, the FBI, DEA, ATF, all of those all work with us every day in a task force model, and we appreciate it. We'd love to have the state police, and we'd also love to have the Minneapolis police chief and his team be alongside of us while we're out there doing those enforcement operations.
Were the agents there wearing
That will
body
get
cameras
you
that
more
were
information as it is revealed, but thank you and everybody. Let's work together to make sure that we can continue to help the city be safer, get more criminals off the streets, and ensure that our public has the opportunity to pursue the American dream in a city they can be proud of. Thank you.
There you have it. That was Kristi Noem responding to what has unfolded today. And we're going to be seeing what else comes out. She said they're going to be doing further investigations to get more information regarding this incident that has unfolded. And as more comes out, I'll be sure to let you know. Now, if you appreciate ICE and what they are doing and you support them, drop a 47 in the comments for support for the Trump administration pushing ICE to go ahead and go throughout the United States and make sure that we get those that are here illegally out. Now, if you don't support this, you don't like what's happening, drop a 46 for the previous administration, which handled things very differently. In fact, we heard they let millions come into the United States. The concern is security for the United States and those bad actors that have entered in. But we're hearing that Donald Trump and the Trump administration, they are trying to clean things up. So let me know in the comments, 47 or 46. Also, do me a favor, if you haven't done so yet, please take a second, hit that like button for me. Help spread this out further across the YouTube platform so more people can get the latest updated information. Subscribe to stay up to date. It is totally free, and all the articles I've referenced are going to be hyperlinked in the description, along with additional resources. But that is the latest, you guys, and I see 47s pouring into the comments, along with Ice Baby in the comments. But that is the latest, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.